Welcome, my friends. Today I will tell you a tale of deceit, betrayal, and love that has survived the darkest storms. Enjoy the story. Lisa Powers slumped on the couch, tears streaming down her face. The husband she once knew, the loving, caring Robert who used to dote on her every need, was gone, replaced by this cold, distant stranger. "Robert, we need to talk," she pleaded, as he strode through the living room without so much as a glance in her direction. "Ever since the accident 2 years ago, it's like you're a completely different person." Robert stopped and slowly turned towards her, his eyes narrow slits. "Well, maybe I am a different person now, Lisa. The accident changed me. I'm not the same naive guy who worshipped the ground you walked on anymore." "But why are you never home? Why are you constantly going out at night without any explanation?" He sneered. "I don't owe you any explanations. I'm my own man now. If you can't handle the new me, that's your problem, not mine." With that, he stormed out, leaving Lisa huddled on the couch, sobbing uncontrollably. "Oh my God, Lisa, I'm so sorry," Nancy blurted out, pulling her friend in for a comforting hug. They were in the break room at the office where they both worked. "I didn't want to be the one to tell you this, but you have to know the truth." Lisa pulled back, her eyes wide with fear. "Know what? What's going on, Nancy?" Nancy took a deep breath. "It's Robert. He's been cheating on you, with some young blonde bimbo. Rumor has it he's crazy about her, taking her on fancy dates, buying her expensive gifts and jewelry. With your money." Lisa's world started spinning. She felt dizzy, sick to her stomach. No, that can't be right. Robert loves me. We've been together 10 years. "I'm so sorry, hun," Nancy said, tears welling up. "Word around the office is he's going to leave you for this girl soon. He's already talking to lawyers about divorcing you, cutting you out of the business you helped build from the ground up." A million thoughts raced through Lisa's mind. Confront the other woman? Hire a hitman to take Robert out? Poison his food? "Lisa, snap out of it!" Nancy's voice broke through her fog. "First step is getting yourself a bulldog lawyer. Don't let that bastard take you for everything you're worth. Protect yourself. Then we can figure out how to nail his cheating ass." Lisa took a deep breath and opened the front door, steeling herself for the showdown to come. Robert was sitting on the living room couch, scrolling through his phone. "Get off your damn phone and look at me," she shouted, making him jump. "I know everything, Robert. I know all about your sordid affair with that tramp." Robert's face hardened. "So the old ball and chain finally found out, huh? Can't say I'm surprised. You always were a miserable nag." "How could you do this to me?" Lisa cried, hurt and anger rising in her voice. "After everything we built together, the business, the house, the life, after 10 years I thought you loved me." "Loved you?" He let out a cruel laugh. "Maybe at first, but I haven't been happy in years, not with your constant nagging and an utterly dead bedroom. Emily makes me feel alive again." Lisa recoiled like she'd been slapped. "Emily? You mean that's the name of your $2 whore?" "Don't you dare call her that!" Robert shouted, rising from the couch. "Emily is 10 times the woman you'll ever be. Smart, beautiful, adventurous in and out of bed. I'm divorcing your miserable ass and marrying her." "Over my dead body!" Lisa screamed. "You're not taking one dime, not one penny of the money and business I helped build." Robert smirked. "We'll see about that. With my lawyers and the dirty judges I've got in my pocket, you won't get a cent, you money-grubbing cun." The rest of his vile insult was cut off by Lisa's hand cracking across his cheek. They glared at each other, hatred burning in their eyes, their marriage lying in a shattered heap between them. "All rise for the Honorable Judge Thomas Barker presiding," the bailiff shouted. Lisa could feel her heart pounding in her chest as the scowling, overweight judge waddled into the room and took his seat. Robert and his pregnant, blonde bimbo girlfriend were sitting at the next table, holding hands and smirking at her. Over the next 2 torturous weeks, Lisa's world came crashing down around her. Despite ironclad evidence that she'd been the brains and driving force behind the couple's successful construction business, Judge Barker seemed determined to side with Robert at every turn. "With all due respect, Your Honor," Lisa's lawyer argued yet again, "my client's contributed sweat equity and resources prove she has an ownership stake. Mr. Powers could not have built this business alone." "Save your breath," the judge growled, silencing him with a wave of his meaty hand. Your client's verbal claims of involvement aren't enough to establish a lack of consent for the handling of marital assets. Mr. Powers will maintain full control of the business, while Mrs. Powers shall be granted a generous alimony payment and living allowance from her husband's funds. It was a death knell. As Barker droned on with the draconian details, Lisa realized her life's work, her dreams and security were being ripped away forever. Robert sat back with a look of smug satisfaction, his teenage mistress draping herself over him and smiling right at Lisa. On the last day, she fled the courtroom, unable to contain her rage and despair any longer. Lisa stood on the courthouse steps, oblivious to the cold rain soaking her to the bone. Her life was in ruins. No business, just a meager living allowance from Robert and a small Venice Beach apartment. He got everything: the house, the money, his child bride. "Hey, lady!" a scratchy voice broke through her thoughts. Lisa turned to see a young homeless boy, maybe 12 years old and clearly strung out on drugs, holding a crumpled ID card in his tiny hand. "I'll sell you this quality ID for $20. It's legit," the boy rasped with a horrifying grin, showing his rotted teeth. "Beat it, kid," Lisa spat, turning away. She stopped cold when she saw the name and photo on the ID. It was Robert's information, just with a different first name: Max. "What the hell?" She spun back to the homeless boy. "Where did you get this?" "From a couple abandoned junkies downtown. They got tons of fake IDs down there." Something wasn't adding up. Despite her revulsion for the squalor around her, Lisa handed the boy a $20 bill. "Lead the way, kid. I need to see what's going on." Lisa gagged, overwhelmed by the stench of human waste and rotting garbage as she picked her way through the dank, shadowy underbelly of abandoned factories. Rats scurried by her feet, while menacing figures leered at her from makeshift tents and lean-tos. "We're almost there, lady," the homeless boy rasped, guiding her deeper into the labyrinth of squalor and deprivation. "The old dude who hooked me up with that ID is just down this next tunnel." They turned a corner, and there, huddled against the brick wall in a rusting wheelchair, was a shockingly gaunt and disfigured man with sunken cheeks and stringy hair. Haunted eyes stared back at Lisa with an uncanny familiarity. "Robert?" The name caught in Lisa's throat in horror. There was no way, no possible way this wretched creature was her husband. And yet, the frail man coughed, a jarringly familiar sound that made Lisa's skin crawl. "Lisa, is that you?" Somehow, against all odds, this decrepit shell of a person was indeed Robert Powers, her husband of 10 years, the man she had loved with every fiber of her being, alive in this nightmarish underground hellscape. "Robert, what happened to you?" Tears welled up as she knelt beside his body. Through cracked, parched lips, Robert began weaving a tale so depraved and unbelievable that Lisa could scarcely process it all. "Max. He's my twin brother," Robert croaked. "Identical twins. You'd never know by looking at us. We've hated each other since we were kids, always fighting, trying to one-up the other." He paused to catch his breath, a ghastly wheeze rattling in his bony chest. "When we got older, things only got worse. We'd steal each other's girlfriends for sick kicks, sleep with the same girls just to mess with each other's heads. Eventually we decided to use our identical looks to really screw with people, take things further than ever before." Lisa sat in stunned silence, horrified comprehension slowly dawning. "Max met you first," Robert continued, not meeting her gaze. "Told me all about this sweet, innocent lady he'd just started dating. I'll admit I got obsessed. Couldn't stop thinking about you. So I did the most twisted thing imaginable. I inscutated myself into your life, switched places with Max behind your back." Tears flowed freely down Lisa's face now, her head spinning with revulsion and disbelief. "You really didn't know it was me instead of Max. I swept you off your feet, made you fall for me, married you, built that whole life and business with you, while my brother watched from the sidelines, burning with jealousy. Then after the accident, when the doctors had me half dead—" Robert chuckled darkly. "That's when Max struck. Convinced the doctors and staff he was me. Got himself installed as your husband while arranging for me to get stashed down here. Left to rot." He finally looked up, his eyes hollow and haunted. I'm so sorry, Lisa, for all the lies, the deceptions, the hell I've put you through. Max got the life he'd always envied, and I ended up here discarded like trash. Lisa sat numbly, her mind reeling as the pieces slowly fell into place. The drastic personality shift after the accident, Robert's philandering and strange behavior, it had all been his twisted, vindictive brother Max the entire time, pretending to be him. Robert looked up at her imploringly. I know it's too much to ask after what I let happen, but please, you have to stop Max. Don't let that sick, depraved bastard continue living my life while I rot. Suddenly, Lisa's shock turned to red-hot rage. Years of broadcasting anger over being cheated on, belittled, and ultimately having her life's work ripped away. It had all been a lie, a colossal deception by Max. She rose to her feet, fists clenched. Don't worry, Robert. I'll get that son of a bitch for this, whatever it takes. He stole enough from us. Over the next fevered weeks, Lisa collected as much evidence as she could, with help from her new homeless contacts. IDs, background documents, even grainy footage of Max's comings and goings from the derelict tunnels where he'd stashed Robert. It was thin, drastic circumstances called for drastic measures. Every waking moment consumed with plotting to set the record straight, to unmask Max's treachery and reclaim her life once and for all, by any means necessary. Order in the court! The judge's gavel thundered in the hushed chamber. Lisa couldn't tear her eyes away from Max, sitting cockily at the defendant's table in a $1,000 suit, his latest bimbo fawned by his side. The same smug look of entitlement he'd worn the entire trial, as high-priced lawyers argued over arcane legalese. Her hands trembled as she rose, walking towards the bench with a cheap camcorder and a makeshift case file. This was her one desperate chance to set the record straight, to expose Max for the vindictive, depraved liar that he was. Your Honor, I'm sorry, but I have to put a stop to these farcical proceedings, Lisa said, her voice steady despite the adrenaline rush pounding through her veins. This man, she pointed an accusatory finger at Max, is not my husband, Robert Powers. He is an imposter and con artist by the name of Max Powers. Raucous laughter filled the gallery as Max waved a dismissive hand. Your Honor, might I remind you that this sad, deluded woman already had her day in court? Silence! The judge silenced Max with a rap of his gavel. Miss Powers, this had better be good because you're already on very thin ice. See for yourself, Your Honor, Lisa said firmly. With trembling hands, she popped in the camcorder tape and hit play. Grainy night vision footage appeared on the courtroom monitors. A haggard, unkempt man in a wheelchair being tended to by vagrants in the underground tunnels. That's my husband, Robert Powers, Lisa stated, her voice wavering slightly. The real Robert, left for dead in those tunnels by this imposter sitting before you. She gestured at Max, whose cocky sneer had faded into a look of genuine shock and horror. The footage continued, eventually showing Robert's plaintive testimony about Max's decades-long deception and twisted swap of identities. By the end, a deathly hush had fallen over the courtroom. Lisa took a steadying breath. I have further evidence, IDs, documents, everything proving this man's real identity as Max Powers, Robert's reviled identical twin, a pathological liar and criminal who has been tricking us all, living a life that wasn't his to take. She turned to face Max head-on, eyes blazing with righteous fury. You didn't just steal my husband's identity. You stole our lives, our love, our business, everything. Well, no more. No more lies, no more deceptions. It's over, Max. For a long beat, the courtroom was utterly still and silent. Then Max seemed to slowly deflate, his pompous exterior melting away to reveal the sniveling coward underneath. No, you don't understand, he sputtered desperately. Robert and I, we had an agreement, a way to... Enough! The judge's roar shook the room. He fixed Max with a withering glare. I've heard quite enough from you, sir. Miss Powers' evidence appears comprehensive and damning. Bailiffs, take this reprobate into custody at once. As a bawling, pleading Max was wrestled from the court in handcuffs, Lisa finally allowed tears of relief and vindication to stream down her cheeks. It was over. She had exposed Max's deceit to the world. Now she could finally begin setting things right. Lisa stood in the doorway, smiling at the scene of domestic bliss before her. Robert, now significantly healthier after extensive treatment, sat on the floor playing with their rambunctious son Benjamin and laughing uproariously. Little Susie, their cherubic 2-year-old daughter, toddled over with a face-splitting grin to plop herself in her daddy's lap. It had been a long, arduous road to get here. In addition to finally exposing Max's staggering lies on the courtroom floor, Lisa had to endure a Herculean legal battle against his callous accomplices. The judge, lawyers, and officials happily paid off to help Max brazenly usurp Robert's identity and assets for years. One by one, they were brought down on corruption charges through her tenacious perseverance. With Max imprisoned for his unforgivable crimes, Robert's identity and rights as her lawful husband were finally reinstated to the world. From there, the healing could truly begin. Robert went through intensive therapy and treatment, both physical and psychological, to overcome the horrific trauma inflicted by his own twisted sibling. Their business assets and wealth were gradually recovered and rebuilt through invested settlements. Most importantly, their family, the loving family unit Max had so desperately sought to strip away, was made whole once more. Benjamin, the brave street urchin who'd helped set Lisa on Max's trail, was adopted and given a stable, nurturing home. Susie's arrival a couple years later completed their perfect little clan. As Robert gazed up at her adoringly while cuddling their children close, Lisa felt an overwhelming peace and contentment. Their well-earned happily ever after had finally arrived.